Well, hello everybody. Welcome once again to the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Always glad to see everybody here. I really appreciate all the new subscribers I've had lately. I've been seeing my numbers go up a little bit, but I love my regulars too that tune in week after week. I could have done the show without y'all, so I really appreciate all the support you've given me these last, 128 episodes now. So, really building it up. For the newcomers out there that's watching this show for the first time, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it days, weeks, months later after this, it's just what the title says. It's variety. Every week I have an individual guest to talk about an interesting topic. It could be their profession. It might be a hobby. It might be a musical segment. It might be a how-to segment. So you never know what you're going to get unless you hit that little subscribe button up there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and you'll get advance notice of guests that are coming up later on this week and the shows afterwards. So appreciate you all being here. And if you like tonight's guest and if you like tonight's topic, make sure you hit that like button. Definitely want to show our guest some love, that we appreciated her time to be on the show. I want to talk to you an update before I bring her out. I talked a little bit last week before the show. I was going through some anxiety and stress, and I still am a little bit on a personal note. But just a couple of hours before this show, I got a massage. There's a professional massage works in town. And let me tell you, folks, I mean, the shoulders, the neck, and the legs, that just like wiped all my anxiety away. That did more than any kind of pills could have done. So if you have never had a massage, professional massage, go out and get one, because the stress that even I was feeling this morning is like gone. That was the quickest hour of my life. I had a very professional, masseuse. So yeah, that's really good for stress and detoxing. So make sure you try that out, because that really helped me in the last week that I've been feeling a lot of heavy stress. So anyway, we won't talk about stress. Let's talk about something that touches it all. Our money, your money. Are you sure that you're investing right? Whether you're investing for retirement, whether you're investing for your future, your kids, your grandkids, whatever. Are you making money your thing? Have you thought about it? What do you have a savings account? What are some things that you can do to make extra money? Well, I am not the expert, so we're going to bring the person on that actually is the expert, and she will give us some very key advice. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Kalee Boisvert. I know I said that
Hello.
wrong, but Kalee, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we all need financial advice, and I am probably the cheapest offender, probably not making my money my thing. So, kind of tell us about your background. Are you a financial advisor, or are you a broker?
Yes, so I'm a financial advisor and I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. And so I started it always knowing I really wanted to focus on supporting women in their financial lives.
Mm-hmm.
I am a single mom myself and I was raised by a single mom. So growing up, money, how I witnessed it, it was really a source of stress on my mom. And so seeing that, it brought up kind of a few things for me. Like, obviously, I wanted to do anything there was I could do to help her. And I was,
Sure.
I didn't have a lot I could do back then. But I was also very like intrigued and fascinated with money at that point. And so, I kept kind of on that path. And that's where, of course, my career landed me. And so I've been doing it ever since. And again, like my business has been built really on supporting women, creating a safe, comfortable space for women to come and talk about finances and money and investing. Oftentimes, women feel a little bit like uncomfortable and they're almost like sitting on the
Mm-hmm.
sidelines because they don't feel like necessarily welcomed into this space. And it's been male dominated for quite some time, and so we're catching up to that, and we're
Yeah.
that's the goal. But so that's my business. And then recently I wrote a book called Make Money Your Thing, which you're alluding to, and
Mm-hmm.
you're right, it's very important to make money your thing. And it's all about building financial confidence, so people can feel more empowered to take action with their finances. Like if you were saying, sum it up into like, what do people need to be doing? Well, I would say it relates to action, because oftentimes I can outline exactly what someone needs to do, and they might just go away and nothing changes. So to me, that was like the frustration. And I'm like, what
Sure.
is going on? Why aren't people doing the things? So I thought kind of like a little bit going deeper and saying, okay, what is happening? People still aren't feeling as confident. They're not, because action, when we feel confident, we take the action. So when we're not feeling very
Sure.
confident, we're kind of like pausing, waiting on the sidelines, avoiding, procrastinating, whatever it is. So this book is all about taking the reader on a journey to build that confidence. So hopefully they can take some inspired action with their money, no matter where they are on their journey. And so, yeah, that's a bit about me. So I love numbers, all things numbers and investing, always been fascinated by it. And then really wanted to create something special for women to feel comfortable and feel like, you've got this, that money is your thing.
Awesome.
So instead of saying things like, I'm not good with numbers, I'm not good with math, money isn't my thing, that's the point of the book. Let's make money your thing.
Sure. What do you see now? We hear a lot of mistakes people make with their money, and probably the number one, or close to the top 10, would be not investing, not preparing for retirement. Do you see other things in a generic sense? What people are doing where they're having pitfalls with their money. What do you? What are some things that people are kind of hitting those proverbial potholes in the road?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. But that's okay, right? Because we can keep going forward. We can do things about it. So I don't know. I think one of the big things is just the mindset we have and the beliefs we have about money that we're sort of holding on to. They can often be very outdated. And when it comes to like money beliefs, when you really kind of do some digging into the beliefs you have about money, oftentimes you can see that they came from maybe your childhood and from other people that you heard, talking about money, whether it was your parents or teachers or something like that. But, I think that's one of the mistakes we're making, is we're not taking time to work on that mindset. Because if you're believing some of those beliefs, I would say a lot of them can be quite negative, myself included. Like money was a form, like it was like a form of there was like scarcity surrounding money, and it was always like there's never enough money. I've had people say things like, I was talking on a podcast and they said, thing they've heard was like, money is the root of all evil. Like those are really bad things to be saying about money. And if you're saying those things, money's going to show up in a not so great way in your life. So I would say that's one of the big mistakes, is what is the self-talk, the beliefs, the mindset you're having about money, and what can you do to consciously shift that into something of your choosing. So again, if I was raised and it was like money was scarcity, there was never enough. Well, how can I shift that? Because I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that there's not enough. I want to believe there's an abundance and that I have the power to make a lot of money. And so that can be my mentality and my positive, mindset and affirmations going forward. And when I find myself going into those moments of, that sneaking up and going like, oh, I'm worried I'm not going to have enough for da da da. It's like, stop, pause. Is that even true? What am I consciously choosing now to believe about money that's going to help bring me into more of a positive relationship with my finances? And just, it's going to take some work, but that's a big one. So it's like the mindset piece, because I think if you can get that piece down, that's going to lead and open doors to all the other stuff. But if we're not working on that, that's almost like the foundational piece.
Sure.
And you can't get further oftentimes when you're stuck on that. There's like a block, money block, right? So that's one of the big mistakes. Another one of the big mistakes is not being mindful of your numbers. So like I put in the book, Make Money Your Thing, I outline like 3 questions that I think are very important for people to answer. It's how much money do you have? How much money do you earn? And how much money do you spend? And I would say the majority of people do not know the answer to those questions. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm kind of stumped on those questions, that's completely fine. You're there with the majority. But take some time to get to know that, because there's tangible evidence as to the answer to those questions, right? We can look at our bank statements, we can look at our credit card statements and bring that information together and look at it and analyze it and get the answers to it. So it's not like some, weird out there concept. It's actually a really like easy question. It's like a math problem.
Sure.
But take this math problem head on, because this is important math. It's not like calculus or some of
Sure.
those kind of things we learn. This is really important math, because it's a money awareness. So it's just having awareness of your money. When you have an awareness, now you can make decisions based on that awareness. So you can then decide, okay, I want to have an early retirement. Well, I can't help someone plan for an early retirement if I don't know where they are, right? So there has to
Exactly.
be, yeah, you have to know your numbers. And then you're right. One of the ones you brought up is just investing, fear of investing, people not getting invested. What do wealthy people do? They make their money work for them. Like, that's it. Like, it's the secret, and it's not really a secret. It's that they're having their money work for them too. They're working hard for their money, but their money's not sitting around being lazy. It's working for them. And that's through investing. So we have to get invested, especially for those long-term goals. So if you find yourself sitting on the sidelines, scared to invest, fear over investing, there's so much fear over investing, from oftentimes like something you heard someone say, or that they did this investment and lost a lot of money, all that stuff, right? So you have to kind of jump in a little bit. And I have a whole chapter devoted to that,
Good.
that goes through the fears and hopefully kind of like breaks it down and makes it a little bit more approachable investing, because that's something we have to do. You got to get your money working for you.
Absolutely. And one mistake that I've heard several people make is that they use it's the old saying, they put all their eggs in one basket. And that means they've all put all their money into like one stock or one savings account or one this or one that. So how, Kalee, can you tell us how important is it to diversify your investments?
Yeah, you're right. That's really important, right? So it's the whole phrase is, yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because that can make investing like quite terrifying, to be
Yeah.
honest. If you have just one company and you're invested, you're all in, and then you're just like sleeping away. You wake up in the morning to news like, oh, there's this huge lawsuit and
Gone.
you have a
Yeah.
recall of something and da da da, and you're just like, oh my gosh, and you see your portfolio just take a massive dive, on some sort of like big news or event that you probably couldn't see coming. That can happen, and sometimes it's like the best companies around that you're just like, didn't see that happening, didn't see that coming. So how you can get around that is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't have all your money tied to one company or one investment, because that is very scary if that's how you're invested. Because you don't have a lot of control over some of those factors, right? So if there is a big event, or if the stock goes down, you could potentially lose a lot of money, versus if you're in 20 stocks, 40 stocks, that's going to start reducing some of that volatility, because there's not as much company specific risk. Maybe one company goes down today, maybe another one goes up and sort of makes up for it, and then you have more of a smoothed return. So yes, as financial professionals, we love to chat about that all the time, right? Diversify and make sure there is some variety.
Now we've heard people say, and I'm assuming there's people here that don't know, anything about their financial security or don't know what to invest or what to do. You always hear the stuff on Wall Street, buy, 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 or sell, 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 And a lot of people, sometimes me, like, okay, well, how do I know when to buy, or how do I know what to sell? Is that where a broker comes in, or a financial advisor? Is that pretty much the same thing, or are they different?
Yeah, like a financial advisor is definitely going to be someone that's going to guide you through the types of investments and give you advice on investing, and depending on what type of advisor, if you're a discretionary manager, you're kind of just going to go in and invest the money for people once they've signed off on their risk tolerance and things like that. But you're right, like there's so much around us that makes it seem so ultra complicated, and you're like, if you're going by that, you're like, okay, I have to have the TV on all day watching this guy because he's telling me to buy it today. but when am I supposed to sell it? And so I better,
Yeah.
be aware and be ready to go. And that's kind of silly. Like, I think investing like that, it's overwhelming and it's not sustainable, right? You might be okay to do that active type of investing for like a couple weeks at most, but then your life sneaks up on you and you're like, I have kids, I have responsibilities, I have these meetings, I have a job, I have a life.
Yeah.
So I think, I would say the average person should probably just not watch those shows. I mean, I hate to say that into those shows.
A
Us
lot of them are getting
financial
rich quick.
people,
A lot
yeah,
of them are getting rich quick too. So,
yeah. Us money numbers people, I mean, we like that stuff because we could talk about this stuff all day. But no, the average person, and then it makes you feel like you're supposed to be in that space and doing that, and you're like, that's not realistic. It's like having a vehicle and something goes wrong with your vehicle. Like, do you need to know the ins and outs of everything about how your engine works? I mean, if you like that stuff, then maybe, yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
But if you don't, for me, it's I see the light come on the engine, I take it in and get the professionals to do their thing. I just want to know it's fixed or what I need to do on my end to make sure nothing happens. And that's it. Like, I trust the professionals, or I kind of leave it to them. I don't want to like go on YouTube or try to figure out how to do it myself. Like, I have no interest in it. So let's be realistic too with your money. Like, do what's sustainable and easy. And I think that investing can be easy. Like, you don't have to go down that path. And a good way to kind of create a easier solution is just using things like ETFs, which are exchange traded funds,
Hmm.
and mutual funds. So think of it as just a basket of holdings. So you're getting,
Okay.
that full, like, not all eggs in one basket. You're getting
Sure.
like a variety, you're getting all sorts of things, not just eggs in your basket, right?
Yeah.
You're getting all sorts. You're getting like Amazon and Apple, and then you're getting some bank stocks, and maybe you're getting some bonds in there too, and things like that. So it's something like an ETF, exchange traded fund, or a mutual fund is a great place for investors to be, because again, you don't have to be this expert. We acknowledge like some of the best investors of all time, like Warren Buffett, I think of.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. But he still like goes into the office every day and he's reading the reports and he's like doing the due diligence and spending hours on it. And like, who has time for that if that's not like, and he
Yeah.
does that, he's done well.
Absolutely.
Let's leave it up to the professionals. Like, Berkshire Hathaway, if you invest in, which is like Warren Buffett's company, you're getting a basket of
Yeah.
holdings. Like, so let's just simplify life as investors. And probably if you're doing it yourself without the help of a professional that's going to take the lead for you, give you ideas and make the changes, if you're not working with an advisor, and you're doing it yourself, then those are great options, because you don't have to keep like your eye on things every day and stress out. You know
That's
that you're
great.
invested in a bunch of things, and that should serve you well. And yeah, like you said, that like kind of get rich quick thing or something, people think like there's a lot of
Yeah.
greed in investing. And if your decisions are based in more of greed, like trying to find a shortcut,
Hmm.
I'd probably like caution you against that, because I
Yeah.
generally
Not
don't see
good.
those working out. And I've been in the industry for quite a while, and I've seen people do it. They hear about this like penny stock from a friend of a friend, and da da da, and they just want to put a little bit in and stuff. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then like of those, like very few
Yeah.
have a
Very few.
positive impact. A lot
Hmm.
just like go down to nothing. And so it's just, let's like set realistic expectations when it comes to investing, that you're just looking to build wealth, like a long-term patient approach. Just like if someone's real estate investing, do you think they're looking for like a day-to-day gain? Like, no, absolutely not. They're
No.
buying real estate and holding it and like renting it or whatever they're doing for like
Hmm.
years and years and years and years. It's not an everyday, sell, buy, sell, buy. But the downside with the financial markets is, you get to see that every day going up and down. And so it gets our attention versus like real estate. You're not watching the price of a house. I
Right.
bought it yesterday. What's it worth today? That would be silly. So have that same approach with investing. Like, that's a realistic expectation. And it might sound boring to say, oh, 8% compounded returns or whatnot. But I'll tell you, like, when those compound. And when you're looking at like 20-year time periods or 40-year time periods, it's amazing what can happen. And I give some examples in my book of like, put away $100 a month at this age, and if it grows at this is what you'll have. And you can be a millionaire by just starting when you're early, like when you're young, and putting away a couple $100 a month and having it compound at something like 8%.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about bonds. Does that include government bonds, or were you talking about some other kind of bonds?
Yeah, government bonds. Yeah, bonds are kind of boring, right?
Yeah. Or no? Do you have a certain? See, I know little about bonds. Do those have a certain maturity date, or do you like to pick a
Yeah.
5-year, or 10-year, or 15-year note?
Yeah, it depends on the bond you're buying. So it's the characteristic of the bond. Think of a bond as like you're lending someone money for a certain duration of time, and in return they're paying you interest. It's like you're being the bank in that scenario, right? So you buy a bond and you say, yeah, I'll give you $5,000. You're going to pay me 6% per year over the next 5 years, and then at the end of the time, you give me my money back and it's done. So that's kind of a concept of a bond in its simplest form. It gets complicated because then they have an active trading market. So then now I'm holding this bond and I'm like, yeah, I'm bored with this. I need to sell this and buy this instead. So now you're looking to sell your bond to someone, and it's going to depend on where interest rates are and what, other bonds are trading for and things like that. So that's why the bonds took a really big dive last year. Yeah. And we're still seeing it because what happened with interest rates went up and bond prices go down when interest rates rise. So it's an inverse relationship. How does that make sense? Well, in my example where I said, here's that bond, I'll pay you 6%. Let's say interest rates are rising. Now this guy comes out and says, oh, I have this bond, I'll pay you 7% for. So everyone's like, well, I want that one. Why would I want 6% when I can get the 7%?
Exactly.
Now your 6% looks a little bit like meh. So then prices are going down on it because of that, because it's less competitive. So that's kind of like the idea around why did bonds go down so much this last, like in 2022, and why are we still seeing them with quite depressed prices on these bonds? Well, that's the reason why. When interest rates go up, we can expect bonds to go down.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great information. I was going to ask you, now I'm going to show your website for everybody, but I wanted to ask you, now you are a financial advisor. Can people go to your website and like quote unquote hire you or get advice from you?
Yeah, like absolutely. You can reach out on the contact on my website. I work with people all across Canada and the US.
Okay, there's their website right there. Can you tell us the name again? I don't want to butcher the name anymore.
Yeah, so it's KaleeBoisvert.com. And so you're right, take a look at it because it's spelled very weird. So it's Kalee and then BOISV as in Victor ERT.com.
So Kalee, if someone goes to your website, kind of what information will they see there?
Yeah, so they'll see some pictures of me.
Hey, nothing wrong with self-promotion. Nothing wrong with that.
Hopefully they'll see some pink. So I got my pink vibe going on. They will see some blog posts. So I should go up and update some of those. I do have some blog posts on there. Some of my podcast episodes from when I had my podcast running. And then links to my books, so where you can buy my books, and a contact form where you can reach out to me, and I'll get in touch with you, and we can chat about whatever it is your burning money questions, or even just comments or things you want to share, like money victories. I like hearing those too.
Do you have a certain geographic area or in the world that you need to work from, or can you work from anywhere in the world?
I can, yeah. But I have a 1-year-old, so he's sort of like kind of not so great to travel with, right? He's like he's really cramping my style because I have a daughter who's 9 years old, and then I have a 1-year-old, and so her and I have all these places we want to go to, and then we look at him and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't.
Well, I mean, you can do as like a Zoom, couldn't you? Or would that work or no?
Yes, I do Zoom with lots of clients. And yes, my business has really opened up to where I can work with lots of people everywhere because the power of Zoom that we learned during COVID and the lockdown when people started using that method a little bit more. A lot more.
Yeah. Let me ask you this now. Every country, of course, has its own currency. The U.S. dollar, the Canadian, the British pound. The Japanese yen. It could go on. The German mark. How do you, when you invest? How do I answer this question? How do you do the currency conversion? I guess I'm asking how do you convert that into whatever their home country is?
Yeah, so generally you're always like investing in your home currency or whatever currency you have. Sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
have people that live in the US but have Canadian dollars, and so they want to invest accordingly. So that's kind of the easy one. US and Canada is a little bit easier. International can be sometimes difficult if you're buying things directly on their exchanges because their hours of operation are quite different. So sometimes it can be hard to like time that or put it through, or it's going to go through when I'm sleeping oftentimes. So, I mean, again, when you go back to the conversation of let's keep this simple, an ETF, a basket of holdings where it has some international, some domestic, that's a great place to go to because you don't have to worry about currency. You're buying it in your currency, but you're
Okay.
getting these other companies from other countries and they're dealing with all the foreign currency stuff inside. So that's probably, I would say, the best way and the most like efficient and, easy. And let's make things easy. Life is complicated enough.
Absolutely. Now, how important? Now, this is one thing that I'm very bad at, and so is sticking on a budget. I mean, making sure how much am I spending for A, how much am I spending for B, how much am I spending for C. So, what advice can you give me in particular, anybody else watching that needs to make a budget? How do you quote budget and then be able to save at the same time?
Yeah, the B word. We don't
The
like
B word.
all budgets.
Yeah.
I have a chapter on budgets in my book. I like to see it as more of an awareness tool. And so I talk about like backward looking, as in, let's see what you have been, where you are spending money, and then
Mm-hmm.
creating a forward looking, which is going to be like your ideal scenario of where you want to see your money going and where you want to be spending in what categories.
Sure.
So I don't like to think of it as restrictive because anything restrictive is not sustainable, I don't believe. So think of it as an awareness piece. And I like to check in on my budget. Um, every like for me it's like twice a year I look at it, and it's actually been like a very beneficial exercise because what I do, I like keep it old school. I have a pen and a paper and I go through my transactions like online, like on my online banking and on the credit card statement. I write everything down and then I total it up, and so I can see really what I'm spending. Because when we do that quick math of like, well, I spend about this here and that there, I probably spend, X amount of dollars a month. Usually you're terrible at estimating.
Yeah.
So don't do that method. It's not going to help you. Do whatever you work. Maybe it's like you do a spreadsheet or you do something more techy than I do. But then, so I have my list and then I can look at it and be like, okay, then you start having the like wants versus needs versus like, do I want to be spending money there? And every time I like find little places to save, like there's subscriptions that I signed up for that I don't use anymore. So I go in and cancel it. Feel good. You're like, oh, $20 there, $25 there. It all adds up.
Adds
And then it
up.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, oh, my insurance has gone up. I'm going to call the broker and see if there's, if they can see if there's a lower rate. If I bundle everything together, can I get a better deal or something like that? And then you're like, oh, there's $50 there. And you add it all up. And it's sometimes like 1,000 or thousands of
Go up.
dollars if you
Mhm.
haven't done that. Yeah. So it's very empowering. So instead of thinking of that like restrictive, oh no, I'm not going to be able to get my Starbucks coffee if I do a budget, because it's going to be like an enlightening experience thinking you spend too much on that. It's go through it and look at the numbers and see how you're feeling. Like if there's numbers where you're like, ugh, like I didn't even realize I spend that much, doing that, then there's an area you might want to work on and improve upon. And then you'll find yourself being more aware when you're in those moments. So, if you're at the mall and you're like, oh, I'm too easily tempted and I spend too much money. I'm not going to go, or I'm going to make sure I don't spend money. I'm going to leave the payments at home or something like that, my payment methods. Whatever it is, like when you see it, it's very empowering. Anyone who has done that exercise, and I outline it in the book, and strongly urge people to do it as like the action step at the end of the chapter. And I've only heard positive feedback from people about it, of like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. It feels really good to know, where my money is going, where I'm spending money. Because again, it's then you can consciously decide to do what you choose. Because then I was like, okay, cutting back these things I don't even like, don't even use. And now this is more money for things that I do really want to do, like that
Absolutely.
travel fund I'm saving up for when my little kid's old enough or whatnot. Like those are things that get me more excited and pumped up about spending money on. So that's what really is powerful in a budget. It's not about beating yourself up and like being restrictive and like day to day, because that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, why like make yourself feel like crap, right? Like let's make
Absolutely.
ourselves feel good.
Well, I did want to ask one thing now. See, I'm still employed, which many of our audience members are, but those of
Yeah.
us that are still working, most of the companies we work for have, a 401k we can invest in. So just your opinion, not specific advice, but how much should one invest in 401k? Is there a certain limit maybe to start off with, or does it depend on the individual person? I mean, I've heard 10%, but some people say that, well, I can't survive on 10%. So let me ask you this, maybe ask you the question this way. What's the average country, whether it's U.S. or Canada, what's the average that people invest in their 401ks? What percentage of their gross is that I'm asking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's probably not like that I would know of an average, but I would say it's like lower than it should be. Like if you can get like an employer match or this like forced savings, by all means, try your hardest to get it to that max of what they're going to match it at or whatnot, because it's very powerful. And maybe you can't, like, your first year and you're just getting kind of sorted or whatever, you just bought a house or you just had a baby or whatever it is. There's maybe like an expensive time where it just doesn't make sense, but have it be a goal where you want to work up to maximizing that. Because if they're matching what you're putting in, that's free money. That's a huge return, right? And not all companies do it. So it's very beneficial if you're working for an employer that offers this. And then if you are, maxing it to the amount you could. Because a lot of like financial advisors, financial professionals, we look at, well, how much should you be putting away for your like long-term savings? Think of long-term savings as like your financial freedom, your retirement goal. And the number often comes in at like 10 to 15% of of your gross. Yeah. Or now, like 10% is like kind of like the number they used to use, and now they're increasing it probably because inflation and all sorts
Because that's
of
it,
things.
yeah, I'm sure.
And then Social Security, is it going to run out, and all these like scary things. So the more you can do, the better. And again, it's not like you're taking away from yourself, because it's for future you. It's not like someone's stealing that money every paycheck and you're like, man, I could have more money. You're not.
We all think
it away.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It's for you, just you in the future, and you're the same you as you in the future. So let's be kind to future you and do what you can. So again, if your employer offers it, do as much as you can. Make sure you're getting invested too. So it's like step one, it's going into there, but make sure it's being invested. It's not just sitting there as cash. And so that's like, a whole discussion of your investment allocation. Generally, the theory is when you're young, you want to have more being allocated to equities, which are like stock investments.
Absolutely.
And then less to bonds, which I talked about, boring bonds. And then as you get older, you want more of those boring bonds and a little bit less equity, so you can kind of smooth things out a little bit more. And that's the thought. So it's, while you're young, you need to take on more of that equity stock investing. And it might feel like a bit of a wild ride, but like I said, that whole, try not to look at it so often or think of its valuation on a daily basis. Think of it as a long-term investment, like investing in real estate or something like that, where, you give it time. It's going to go down. Markets are going to go down for sure. They're going to go up. They're going to go down. But when we zoom out, what we've seen is that still looks like an upward sloping line. So investors over the long term have always returned positive results over the long-term time frames.
Sure.
So that's a great thing is that when your employers are doing these, so get involved in them, take advantage of them, work up to maximizing it if you can't right away. And then two, if they offer like a Roth option as well, that's a great one to take advantage of. So it's a Roth is more of just like a tax-free account where you don't get a tax benefit for putting the money in, or it's not, before tax when the money goes in, but when you take the money out, it's tax-free down the line. So it's a great tool to complement your retirement income that's going to not have as much tax implications for you later on. So that's another amazing tool for doing your investing in. And remember, let's think of these as sort of just accounts, right? They're just the holding spot.
Sure.
So a 401k is not an investment in itself. You hold investments within your 401k or within your Roth IRA. So those are, holding spots for the investments. So if you think maybe it's getting invested, you might want to check in and just make sure it is, because it's not an investment in itself, which sometimes people can get confused about.
Now, does that include CDs or like certificates of deposit?
Yeah, that's an investment. You can invest in those. Absolutely. Depending on kind of the options in the lineup, that would be like even more boring than bonds, right? If we're going on the boring spectrum, but boring is good and is essential for certain stages of our lives.
Now you did touch briefly on your book that you wrote, so I definitely want to promote that. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kalee's new book called Make Money Your Thing. It's exactly what we're talking about. And I like the subtitle in here. Ditch the Shame and Design Your Dream Life. Well, tell us about that. Tell us how we ditch the shame and design our dream life.
Absolutely. So I think it's like, it's like deep. It goes deep money. It can almost be like we take it as like a personality trait. And I read about this in my book near the beginning when I'm talking about doing the inner work. Growing up poor, not having a lot, I share a story about when all I wanted was a Barbie dream house. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was like the only thing I wanted for Christmas. I put it on my list for Santa, and I just like, that's all I want. I'll never ask for anything else. I'll be so good. And
we've all said that.
Yeah, and I was really good though. And Christmas rolls around, and I didn't get the dream house. I got like shoes and very practical things, because my mom or Santa didn't have a lot of money in my case. And
Not that year.
And what was really sad, then I went to see my friend. We lived in like kind of a little complex, and there was like a park, and I saw her the next day, and she comes running up to me, and she's like, "Guess what I got for Christmas?" And she got the Barbie dream house.
Oh no.
I was just like devastated. And it started to feel like in that moment like a personality trait about me. My this not having enough started to be like not having enough money started to mean like I am not enough. And so it was like internalizing, and it becoming like shame. And shame is so much like deeper than just like this surface level money stuff. And so I had a worthiness element of thinking like I am not good enough, or I am not enough. I am not as good as these other girls and people that are having all this stuff.
Your self-confidence, yeah.
Yeah, it's like impacted. And so I had to do a lot of work over the years. When I grew up and realized it didn't mean that I was less because I got less for Christmas or whatever. And so it's like trying to like pull apart this net worth and self-worth. Like our self-worth is not decided by our net worth, but we almost like let it be that way. Like, why do we want the fancy cars and the things that very outwardly give this image of wealth? Oftentimes we think it's going to make us feel better about ourselves, that
like the grass is always greener.
Yeah, like I am successful, I'm doing well because look at this purse I have. Like I have a purse that could cost as much as a house, like
a Gucci bag or whatever.
Yeah. And it's hard, like when that's where like shame is something so much deeper. And I think with money, it can go so much deeper, and it can go to a level of when you're internalizing some of this money stuff, it might actually take you to that level of shame. So we have to get rid of that. Like we have to like pull those two apart and say, like, my self-worth is not determined by my net worth, and decide, like, what success is and what it looks like for you, because it's going to look different for everyone. And it's not going to be a bank account balance that you have to achieve. Um, and I've seen people at like all levels of wealth that still have those same fears and whatnot. So that's proof that it's not just the number. It's not like, well, if I had $5 million, I'll feel better about everything, and everything would be great. Like, that's not the answer. The
Yeah.
answer is kind of going more deep within and working on ourselves and taking it apart from that dollar worth, and then deciding that we're worthy. We can have $0, we have negative dollars, and we're still absolutely worthy, and we can still be succeeding. So that's why it's ditch the shame and design your dream life. That was a really long explanation of
Absolutely. No,
that.
that was great. So that was kind of your drive then. You said you grew up
Yeah.
poor. Was that your drive to become a financial advisor yourself?
Yeah, like we grew up really poor, and yeah, I just wanted to figure it out. And then I thought, with all the stuff I was learning, I could teach this to other people, and then no one would have to feel this way. Like, I felt like I could change women's relationships with money. I could make an impact where women didn't have to go through what I saw my mom go through. And that to me was so powerful. So I get to see that and like hear people when they've read the book and what they give me, like what they send as feedback. It's just amazing. And again, it's that reminder that, like, wow, like that's what I set out to do. Like, when you have a book out there and sometimes it feels like, well, is anyone even going to read it? Or if you're not like the New York Times bestseller, you're like, I'm not succeeding. Like, again, it's that, like, that whole, I don't know, high expectations or something, but that makes it all worth it. Like, just knowing that a complete stranger read my book and it
Mm-hmm.
said it had an impact on their lives, and that they're starting to see money differently, and they're starting to take action. Like, that's amazing. That's such a good feeling.
Sure. And you could probably advise people. Maybe they have like a checking account, and maybe they have a large balance in that checking account, but that's all they're doing. It's just they just have it in the checking account and that's it. But I mean, the point of this conversation is they shouldn't just keep it in a checking account. They should make it work. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do wealthy people do? They wouldn't be doing that, that's for sure. So, yes, like, that's great behavior where you have the saving part down, and that's a diligent habit. And getting into that good habit of automatically saving, fabulous. Like, by all means, that's a great habit to have. But what is the key to building wealth? It's investing your money, having it compound and grow. And there's so many investments out there that there's probably
Mm-hmm.
one that's a perfect fit for you. So maybe you're saying, well, I might need half of this money next year for a down payment. So maybe it's like a CD, like you said, a certificate of deposit that has
Mm-hmm.
a 1 year term, and you're earning 6%, 5% interest in the meantime. Because rates have gone up a lot recently, we have to be more mindful of our cash
Sure.
balances, because you can even put in a high yield savings account and be getting more on it. So if, like, it's just sitting in your checking account, you're getting probably like 0.00%, 0.001 or something. Like, you're getting scammed. Like, the bank is winning.
Absolutely.
They are winning in that scenario, and it's your money. You deserve to benefit from it. And so you're right, like, we have to be mindful of that and not sit around. Like, I've done the math for people on, like, well, you're earning this, but just on your cash you could just move it to this and earn that, and it's like thousands of dollars. And I'm like, why are people just leaving thousands of dollars on the table? We'll cut coupons, or force ourselves not to have our
It's just
lattes or whatever.
stagnant. Yeah.
Yeah, but then we'll leave that money. I'm like, here's a better solution. Keep having your lattes and get that money working for you.
Now, I know probably younger people, especially, they really, I mean, not everybody, but they don't really have a good savings plan, but retirement will get up on them before they know it. So, what are you seeing on average? What's the average age that people are retiring now?
I think it's still in the 60s,
60s?
60, 65. But the intention is always earlier than that. So when I'm having the conversations with people, like it's like, I want to retire yesterday, or I want to retire, 50 or 55. And that's early on the spectrum
It
of like
is.
retirement age, because we're living longer now too.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is not keeping up with the intention and the goal, but that absolutely could be realistic. Like having those goals of 50, 55 for young people, if they're getting started and doing something about it early on, absolutely that's achievable. So again, doing something now, especially if you have those goals of, an earlier financial freedom, not thinking like if you hear me saying 65 or even later, if that to you is like, oh, I don't want to be doing that, then this is your chance to say, okay, I'm going to take action now to make sure that that's not the case. Because it's very, like, I show people like, okay, if you start, in your 20s or your early 30s, this is how much you'll have to put away. But if you start in your late 40s, this is how much. And sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
it's a difference of thousands of dollars. Like it becomes, oh, you'd have to put away $5,000 a month. And people are like, well, I can't save that. But you're like, well, if you would have started in your 30s, you only had to put away $600 a month. And you're like, well, that seems a lot more realistic.
Yeah, a lot easier for sure.
Yeah. So it's like saving you money. You don't have to put away as much. You don't have to come up with as much when you're starting earlier, because you're giving it compounding growth. And it's like our minds can't get around that. So then it's like we just don't do it for some reason. Like people aren't doing it. I can show them the charts. I can say, this is what's going to happen. But it's like still our minds like playing these tricks on us where we can't envision how that works or understand that. And we're still like, we're more so just in the moment and like, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But people will buy, I was just gonna say, people are gonna buy new cars with like $700 payments, $800 payments a month. Like that's massive. And if you put that money away, invested it and had it grow, that's like millionaire status later on.
And one pitfall I think people make, and it's very tempting to do, but there is a massive penalty, and you can obviously back me up more than this, but I know when some people, they see that 401k, building up, their 30s and 40s, and they get tempted, and they want to take it out early, but there are substantial penalties for that. Can you attest to that, Kalee?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to pay penalties. You're going to pay tax on it. Don't do it. Like have it be more of a last resort. When you put money there, think of it as future you, retirement goal, financial independence. Yes. Try to tap in other sources. Try to have an emergency surplus available, like that emergency savings account. That's so important to build up as well. If you can have money sort of being diverted there as well. So you have like different buckets, right? You have your long-term financial freedom retirement goal, you have your savings, emergency savings account, maybe you have your vacation account, maybe you have your children's education money going into one of those accounts. Whatever it is, there's probably going to be different places because you probably have multiple goals, but having a bit of a surplus is the most empowering thing as well you can do for yourself and your money, because then if something unplanned happens, you don't have to think of pulling it out of a 401k. You can say, absolutely, I had this money sitting aside, not ideal, but guess what? Luckily I have this here. That is what it is for. And it feels really good to do that than think like you have to start, selling things or pulling off of debt or something like that.
Okay. Let me bring your book back up again, ladies and gentlemen. She wrote a very interesting book called Make Money Your Thing. Kind of tell us some of the highlights or the subject, matters that's in this book.
Yeah, so the book, it's like broken up into 4 parts, and it's taking the reader on a journey of confidence building. So it starts out with like doing the inner work, and then it's about like building that confidence muscle, and then it's about like instilling the confidence and making it unshakable for all the unplanned stuff that's going to come at you. So that's kind of how I structure it. At the end of each chapter, I have taking action steps, which are really important because they're kind
interactive.
Yeah, it's like the how. Like you're reading this and
Okay.
I'm like giving you all these stories and then you're kind of like, okay, what do I do? Well, that's what you do. So do the activities at the end. And I make them, it's not like homework and it's not overwhelming. Like you can do it with a pen and paper right there as you're reading it, or go into the notes section on your phone or whatever and start typing your answers there. I don't make it where you have to like maybe one or two of the chapters are a little bit more in depth, but I try to make it light because I know when I'm reading books like that with like the steps, sometimes I want to do them, but when they seem like there's too much work to it, I'm like,
Yeah.
do I do
Complicated.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, do I keep reading? So I try to make it where you don't feel like you have to avoid these, that you're going to want to do these steps and that they can
Okay.
be quite easy. So that's at the end of every chapter. And so, yeah, it's just that, like, you have to start with the inner work, and that can be some like pretty heavy stuff comes up.
Hmm.
And, it does for me, or it did for me for sure. And, but getting through that and developing kind of a different mindset of like where you're going to be moving forward, it just kind of brings more of like, I don't know, more of like a accepting like vibe to reading the rest of the
Hmm.
book, I guess. Like you're more
Good.
inclined to want to read it and build on this confidence when you start to sort of like do that inner work and clear the blocks and whatever, and clean out the money baggage, and you're
Yeah,
like,
sure.
okay, clean slate, let me go, I'm ready to start. And it just it shares stories of myself, of things I've experienced, and of people I've worked with, or I work with, or I've had conversations with.
Hmm.
So the benefit of being, in this industry, having done it for 15 years, I've had a lot of conversations about money with people. Like every
Great.
single day I converse about money with people, except the
That's a good
weekends I
thing.
don't. Yeah. And so I get to kind of pull on those stories. It's like stories that I can share from a specific point of view. I change the names of the people, but they're
Sure.
often stories that are like trends or like recurring themes I see. And when people
Hmm.
read those stories, they're often seeing themselves in them. Like I was on a podcast this morning and she was saying, Cynthia, who you wrote about, who was too scared to spend her money when she was in retirement, things like that. She's like, that's me. And so I'm like, that's great. Like seeing yourself, because then you can get some tips that are very tangible that you can do if you see yourself in these stories. So I
Absolutely.
share stories of myself and of clients and of people I've come across, to just help really illustrate the concept. Because I want to leave people with a feeling and a whole, like an understanding. I don't want to just like regurgitate financial jargon to you, because that probably won't stick. You'll
Hmm.
probably finish the book and be like, oh, what was that again? And think you have to go back to it. But I want to leave more like lasting stories that you can like go back on and see like the why and what does this mean, and like really see it from that perspective. And I shared the stories too to make it interesting, because like money and finances, again, it can be so like boring or overwhelming or
Hmm.
complicated, and it's like you don't want a book that's going to put you to sleep at night.
No.
I want it to be a book that people want to read and want to finish. And I got an email today from a woman who read it and said she read it within 2 days. She said she couldn't put it
Wow.
down. I'm like,
That's great.
that's so cool. 2 days. So I want to have like, I didn't want to just be like the numbers person writing a financial textbook. So it's very like, it's relatable, it's accessible, it's for people of all stages of life and ages. I've had people read it that say, I didn't really think I need a finance book. I have, I feel like I've got it together. I'm doing
Hmm.
well, but I picked up some things that I'm going to do. And I have people, like young people, reading it and saying they're so excited to get started. And
Good.
so it's all kind of walks of life and places in your financial journey
That's
too.
awesome.
I try to make it very accessible and, not location dependent either. So
Okay.
hopefully, yeah, that it kind of resonates with everyone that reads it.
Well, people watching this, maybe they're interested in buying your book. Where can they buy your purchase
Yeah.
your book?
Probably the easiest place is Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah, because a lot of people I think have their Amazon accounts. I do. So Amazon's easy place. You can buy the ebook there or the physical book. Other though bookstores that have online platforms, Barnes and Noble, Target, you can find it there.
Okay.
And I think it's in some of the physical bookstores, but tough to get in real physical bookstores. unless you're like a well-known New York Times bestseller.
Stephen King or something.
Yeah. He gets the shelf space. It's prime real estate. I had an author explain it to me. She's like, in the realm of like real estate, think of like bookstores as the most prime real estate around. And so I get that. Authors would get that.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I do want to show, ladies and gentlemen, your website again.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell us about the website, and kind of, again, they can contact you there, correct?
Yeah. Just click the contact and then type in whatever it is, your question, or if you want to have a chat, and then I can send you a calendar or a link to that. But yeah, the website will direct you towards the book too, and links to where you can buy it, some blog posts. Hopefully you see something that resonates, and hopefully you're ready to make money your thing.
We're ready to I need to make money in my thing a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll probably be contacting you.
Yeah.
You'll probably be pulling your hair out. Oh my gosh, he invested in what? What are you doing?
No, there's no shame in the money game.
That's right. No shame.
No.
Yeah. Fresh start, right?
Fresh start.
Well, Kalee, I really appreciate you coming on the show to kind of share us your financial wisdom, and looking forward to talking to you more and having you back on the show again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening in.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it all for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. And I say it again, if you liked Kalee and you liked her message tonight, make sure you hit that like button. I'm sure she would appreciate that. And if you're watching this days, weeks, months later, and the show's already over, you can leave a comment there. And if you do leave a comment for her, I'll make sure she gets it. I'll send it over to her. So it's never too late. So hopefully you will make money your thing. I know I need to. So tune in next week. I am on the air every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, I will have another guest and another interesting topic. So until then, I appreciate everybody tuning in. And good night, everybody.